The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my sensor light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. It looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Tia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
You see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience. Season 6 into parts unknown, because that's where we've been the last few weeks. Folks, I'm Sean the Fork Chop Forker. He's Vance Nesbitt. That's James Baker. And right down there is Henry May, your host with Sasquatch Experience, the show you tuned into by accident or on purpose. But here we are nonetheless to bring you a little squatchy goodness on this chilly Monday night, October 17th, 2022. Guys, it's a little cold out tonight.
How about it, huh? We've had snowflakes here. I mean, real snowflakes.
Yes. Real snowflakes. Yeah, we didn't get that far yet, but they're saying perhaps we'll have some this week. James and I were out working the land today, and it was very comfortable earlier this morning. That has changed now going into tonight. A little cold here. In fact, you can't see, but I got a little bit of a blanket on because I'm chilly.
Oh.
And that's
I've got the fireplace going
Henry?
over here, so yeah.
Is it cold or warm where you're at?
It's getting cold. It's getting cold.
Chilly,
before the show we asked Henry what's cold, and he's experiencing the same temperature fluctuations as we are. So pretty cold. Pretty cold down there in Mississippi. But folks came in here to hear about Bigfoot, not about the weather. Because they can get that anywhere else they tune to. But what's been going on, guys? What's been following up in your squatchy world?
Well, I have reached out and have contacted a person that I've known for a number of years now that had a couple of Sasquatch's experiences, so he believes. His testimony and his stories that he shared with me some years back just had my jaw drop to the floor, and I'm like, I really would love to have you share those stories with us at the Sasquatch Experience. He's agreed to do so, so we are in production of actually doing that, so you can look forward to that in the next couple of weeks of his experiences. Pretty fascinating stuff, not hair curling, but pretty interesting things, because he was a child when he had his first experience, and as a full-grown adult, a matter of 6-7 years ago, he had his second experience. Ooh. So to tie those two together is it's going to be kind of exciting to hear his story and share that. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to.
Very good. Henry, what about you?
Well, I've been reading quite a few books. I read Laura Krantz's new book, The Search for Sasquatch. It's written more for the younger set, but there's quite a bit for adults to enjoy as well in that book. So,
Mm-hmm.
What'd you like the most about it?
just the fact that she's more focused on the scientific aspects of it.
So now you said that's geared towards a younger audience. How exactly is she kind of conveying that scientific point of view into the younger folk?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, she's kind of encouraging the younger set to get involved with science, to try and engage scientists. In other
Yeah.
words, don't close yourself off to science.
Yeah, you don't hear very many youngsters, anymore. Youngsters, like I'm 90, talking about, people of science they like to emulate or follow. All you hear is celebrity this and celebrity that, or influencer this and influencer that. I remember a time when the actual influencers were
Mm-hmm.
people of influence and should provoke, thought and conversation and talk about things that matter, not what color lip shade they're wearing or how many
Right.
Mentos they can put in a Coke bottle before they which is
Mhm.
kind of scientific itself, I guess. But very important things like the origin of life and just more critical topics. I'm kind of at a loss myself there for what I wanted to say, but there was a time where science was a little bit more respected, I think, and I'd like to get back to that a little bit. In fact, as we progress through the show tonight, that's one of the things we're going to be talking about, right? The researchers
Mhm.
that are on our mind. Who are we paying attention to, and
Right.
why are they resonating with us, right? And then we'll get into that just a little bit. But
Plus,
what else?
I read Lyle Blackburn's new book, Texas Bigfoot, and enjoyed it quite a bit.
Now, the Texas Bigfoot book, Henry, I was going to pick a copy up at Mothman, but he only had one copy, and it was a first proof, so I didn't buy it. How's the book laid out? What's its overall, presentation about?
Well, he splits it up into different sections of the Lone Star State, and I hear a dog.
Yeah, it was just Baker.
Oh,
Yeah.
Splits it up into sections of the Lone Star State, is what you said.
Mhm.
yes, and he talks about each different type of Bigfoot creature in each of those areas.
Oh, okay. Very good. Any recent reports that he's put in there, or is it mainly
The
historic?
most recent thing he had in there was from 2019, so just a few years ago.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's not bad.
What about
I kind of like the fact, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes, Sean, but I kind of like
fine.
the fact that at least there are researchers that are composing some literature for a younger audience, for lack of a better term, to draw them into the field because that's the future of the research. And I do definitely appreciate the fact that there are those that may be putting it into terms that is understandable for either grammar school or junior high level children to be able to go, ooh, this is really cool. I want to look into this a little bit more and continue that chain. So I think that's really important that it's done that way. And like you said, Henry, it was written in a way that kids might be able to really adapt and get absorbed by the whole topic itself, because this could carry on for the rest of their life. And you might have some substantial researchers 20 years from now still in the field that are either learning or researching this whole thing.
That's kind of like why I like going to the festivals, because a lot of the festivals bring in art and a bunch of other people, and the thing is like you have something on your wall or you have something whatever, and somebody comes in, what is that? It's like, oh, well, that's the Mothman, or that's what Nessie may look like, or that's what Bigfoot could look like. And it's the nice thing is that art and that wonder, and then they can read a book that's at their level. That then they can expand on those thoughts if that's where the route they want to go.
Yeah, I think whatever you have that hooks you into this field of cryptozoology or into the, more narrow focus of Sasquatch research, whether it's art or it's some sort of presentation, Baker, or print media. I think it's important. Podcasts, right? That the good information's out there, and whatever way we have of attracting people to this field, the more eyes in the field that we have, the more boots on the ground, the better and closer we get to an answer, perhaps, to this mystery. So, I think no matter which way you are attracted to the field, it's just important that you maintain your interest and passion into it. Got Bob and Alex in there tonight. Hello, gentlemen. How are you? Bob DeChico and Alex Stewart. Bob saying, I pre-ordered Michael Freeman's new book and hope it comes out out soon. Me too. Big fan of Paul Freeman. I interviewed Mike Freeman a while back, and you can hear that show in our archives, of course. I think it's called Paul Freeman and the Blue Mountain Bigfoot, I think is the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked to Mike Freeman about his dad, myself, and Maz Adams, and just an incredible dude. And I wish I would have got a chance to meet him. Kind of like John Green, my hero, who I never got to meet. Got to interview him a couple times, but never got to meet him in person.
Well,
Vance,
more than most of us got to do.
Vance, it's like you said earlier, right? Like at some point, people are going to be watching this and they're going to be like, well, I wonder where these guys are at, 20, 30, 40 years down the road. And,
right.
Hopefully I'll still be alive, but, chances are you guys won't, but that's just a shame.
I'm like,
sorry for the doom.
No.
I mean, listen, but it's important, right, that we keep the information going. And, I've been up to, and Bake, I'll get to you in a second, but, print has been really important to me again lately. Larry Baxter's Squatch Cop. Naganay, I think I pronounced that right. Tales of the Northern Sasquatch by Red Grossinger. And I just resubscribed to the Bigfoot Times. For those of you that have an interest, I like staying up to date as much as I can. Websites are, always a great way of, getting it. But there's something about having a book. You take it with you. I'm about ready to hit some vacation here at the end of the week, so it's some time to read. But that's pretty much what I've been into, getting these books all set up, ready to go. Bacon, I've been spending some outdoor time. And it's really interesting of the things you learn just about regular animals and the natural world when you're out there in the elements and just kind of doing your thing. And you notice little changes and subtleties that you wouldn't notice if you weren't spending time kind of habituating yourself to these areas you frequent, right? It's a dirty word, but we might as well start exploiting it a little bit because I think it means a lot more than just what we use it to. And Bake, what about you, man? What have you been up to?
I found out the land next to mine was a great Indian battle and that there may be plenty of dead people underneath my land.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
We talked about that this morning at breakfast. What a jaw dropper.
I also made my own hoop house. There are pictures. I did pretty good on that so far. I got my greenhouse finished, thanks to Sean, and didn't die. There were moments.
I held the ladder so we wouldn't fall to his death.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's good.
Well, I last part on the top, and it was the swing. So I had a vent, and the thing was, is when I went to go put it up, it was just too much for me to worry about having to hold on to the ladder and hold on to the roof, hold on to the screw gun, and not die in like Christmas vacation.
We got him. We got him taken care of. Spotting your best friend. That's all you can do.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right?
How about it? Alex joins us all the way from Alaska, so I'm glad he's joining in. Alex Stewart.
Nice.
Brian, of course, our executive producer. Brian Corbin's in the house tonight. Podcasts like this help generate interest. Well, we try, Brian. And I know we've been a little inconsistent lately, but there's this thing called life that kind of kicked us in the crotch lately. But we're rebounding.
What? Yeah. Life?
What? Yeah.
What is money? It means nothing, right?
Well, I'd like to thank everybody. Dude, take a moment and thank everybody for sending their well wishes to my dad. Through his incident he had last week or the week before now, I think. I don't remember. It's the week's floating
the week before, right?
it meant a lot to me, meant a lot to him that so many people cared. So I just want to thank you on behalf of myself and him. He's doing great. He really is.
Mhm.
But I just
Good
again
to
want to
hear.
thank everybody. He was I sat down with him and read him
round
all
of applause.
the well wishes, and he was just the proverbial tickled pink. So
Nice.
thank
No,
you
that's
again. It
glad-
means a lot to
I'm
me that
glad to
people
hear it.
care, and and it goes well to the healing process. It really does. Nothing
Sure.
boosts spirits and gets people back out there. So thank you all
Mhm.
again. Finally, but now we move into the Sasquatch experience. Facebook, Instagram, Squatch EXP. Connect with us
Nice.
socially. Then we'll go into of course, this thing that we do, the Patreon, which is going to have some stuff exploding on it in the next few weeks. Bacon and I have some great things popping up. Vance, you got a couple good things going on there, and Henry.
Mhm.
Well, we're going to get some Henry in there too, so folks know it's going to be special, guys. We really got a lot going on, so stay with us and report it. We want your sightings and encounters. Info at SasquatchExperience.com. Now, enough of our infomercials. Let's get to what we are really here to talk about tonight. Researchers on our minds, guys. And I guess this conversation started, Vance. Well, this was a you idea.
It was. Not that
And
I'm
how
going to
did this
take all
idea
the
come
credit
about?
for it, but I wanted to talk about, hey, who are the researchers that it kind of kicked us into going, wow, this is really interesting, and I want to learn a little bit more. And I know that Baker brought up, his point as to the researcher that he wanted to talk about, which was the same person that kind of kicked it to me. And this goes back a long time ago, but I would
Lauren,
rather
yeah.
have Baker kick this one off because and I'll share after Baker does about the person in which you are looking at right now.
Well, technically, that way, Sean was actually the one who wrote me into most of this. I could drive and he couldn't, and then I got into the thing. The one of the people I really respect is Lauren Coleman, because when Coleman speaks, he may not be what you want to hear, but he did the book learning. He read what he could. He talked to anybody he knew over the years of learning, and he said, "This is what I feel based on this research." He doesn't base it on passion. He doesn't base it on whatever. And as much as they say against him sometimes, he understands that this is a business. Like right now, he's trying to move his museum from one area to another. So if you can support him by buying some shirts or some stuff, that would help him in his moving cost. But but even when the Nessie controversy was coming through, that they were talking about Nessie being eels, he didn't say, I absolutely believe Nessie has to be a plesiosaur, absolutely whatever. He looked back at his research and said, that's plausible with the information we have. And that's why I can believe in him, because he takes the time to look at stuff that I honestly don't have the time for. And it's kind of like when Sean tells me something, or Henry, or even you, Vance, tell me something interesting about Bigfoot. I'll be like, well, they took the time to read the book. I mean, I don't know how many books Henry reads a day, probably like 5, but I know I didn't read that many books. So say something, I take it at face value, because the work was done. And that's why I appreciate Lauren Coleman.
Right.
Cool.
No, I would do a follow-up to the whole Lauren Coleman thing. It was back in 1999, which, okay, we step back some years. And of course, I had
Just a
my
little bit.
personal interest in the whole thing, but I came across his book, Cryptozoology A to Z. And it listed every cryptid.
Vance, we lost your
from
audio for a second.
to Z. Oh, I'm sorry. It listed.
Henry, can you guys still hear it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep
I'm
going.
sorry.
I lost audio. You're fine.
Okay. His book, Cryptozoology A to Z, covered every cryptid from A to Z. And all Lauren did was just give a description and areas and a little brief history to each cryptid. And I found that book extremely interesting because it was so informative. but I knew nothing about Loren Coleman before that book. I knew nothing about him, but I read the book and learned a lot from it. And then once I learned a little bit more about his research into all the cryptids that he's brought forth besides Bigfoot, even though I think he's focused a lot on Bigfoot just because of the culture and the prominence of which Bigfoot is in the area of across the United States and worldwide. It was extremely informative, and I kind of attached a lot to appreciation to what Loren did. And of course, he's got a plethora of other books that he's published along with his museum up in, Maine, I believe, Sean, because you went up there to go visit his museum.
Indeed.
You and Bake went to go visit the museum. And I see that Bake posted up his website where you can donate to help Loren be able to move on and expand with his
He has a shop
research and other locations, right? And it's worth visiting because, look, I kind of envy the guy to go. He got kind of pushed into this unexpectedly, but then adapted it really well. And to have a career based around cryptozoology, I mean, seriously, which one of the four of us would say, yeah, I don't want to do that? I think that's just a fascinating career to be able to hold on to and say, this is what, my legacy is going to be when I leave here, is that I'm a cryptozoologist and I did the best research I could possibly do and give to the general public. And I think Loren has definitely done that. He really has definitely fulfilled that bag of expectation of what cryptozoology and Bigfoot and Loch Ness and, oh man, I got a whole list thing here. The Dover Demon, the Mothman, the Flatwoods Monster, the Chupacabra, the Jersey Devil. I mean, there's a whole list of everything that he has covered that he's done extensive research to. So I give the guy a big thumbs up. Good for him.
Yep. And his
You
museum
talk
is
about.
interesting. One thing
Go ahead.
I always
Go ahead, Big.
Sorry. One thing I always bring up a lot, and I know me and Sean talk about a lot, is we went up there. We didn't really tell many people were really coming. When his people realized who we were, and not just because we're, have a podcast or blah, blah, blah. It's because we've talked to Loren back and forth. He was like 3 counties away, turned his car around to make sure he could come back and take a picture with us.
That's awesome. That's
cool. That's the kind of person that I'd support. It's like when you go to these things and you go up to talk to Meldrum or you talk to certain ones of them, even when the mountain monsters, when Trapper was alive, they were real people. You walked up and they were treating you like, you were family and that they weren't special. They were just somebody who saw something or they had a story to tell. And, and that's why I like Loren. He's just, he's 100% of what he says to be.
That's true.
Plus, he physically looks like it. I mean, look at the guy. Look at the guy. He looks like it, right? I mean, he fits the profile of all these people that you look at. Who would be a cryptozoologist? No, this is definitely Loren Coleman. So, yeah, he fits the profile, and he is a down-to-earth guy.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, guys. I lost my
That's okay.
shit here.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. No, I lost my audio for a second. It's okay. Sorry, folks. No, I was going to say, you guys brought some really great points up about Loren Coleman. My connection to Loren Coleman starts when I got back into this, into the online portion of all this. And of course, Bigfoot, The True Stories of Apes in America is one of my top favorite Bigfoot books. And then getting to meet him through the Forest Giants Yahoo group. And then as he hosted a few episodes of, was it Monster Central or Bigfoot Central, Henry? I always mess that up.
Bigfoot Central.
I think it was Bigfoot Central on Artist First.
Right.
On Artist First, yeah. And of course, he was on Unsolved Mysteries for the Yeti episode. And, we've, had Loren Coleman, around for some time. And, in the early to mid 2000s, Henry's on again, off again relationship with Lauren Coleman. Always brought me a lot of entertainment. If you go back to listen to some of the early episodes
Right.
of
right.
Sasquatch Experience,
Yeah.
there was some books throwing, a couple IRS jokes, which is not funny, folks. You never joke about the IRS,
No.
and
stay
other
listening.
things that happened. But Lauren was always a really nice guy to me, treated me very, very fairly. And I've tried to be as, nice to him and reciprocal over the years. You might not always agree
Right.
with what he says, but at least he says something.
Right.
And it's
And I
usually
have to say,
thought-provoking and interesting.
And a kudos to Small Town Monsters for putting a spotlight on Lauren Coleman in the same aspect in which we all just kind of expressed here. He is who he is, and he just puts the information out there, and you take with it whatever you want. He's not really forcing a whole lot down your throat. And I just kind of push back from those that kind of like to want to push their opinion down your throat. He's not that type of individual.
Yep.
No, really good dude. Henry, anything you want to add to that? I always catch him in mid-drink or mid.
Sorry about that. No, Lauren is one of the good ones. I mean, I not always agreed with him, but
No, you're kidding.
hey,
Yeah, right.
listen, he was nice enough to give me a T-shirt a few years ago.
There you go. You got a T-shirt out of the deal. There you
Yeah,
go.
a signed T-shirt, by the way.
No, he's always been a good
Ooh.
dude. And, anything we can do
Yeah.
to go out of our way to support the International Cryptozoology Museum, which, by the way, is a really cool place to visit. James and I had a good time. And honestly, we spent a few hours there. I could have spent a day and a half or 2 days in there just in some of the dioramas themselves, because, that history is important to me. And if you have,
He's in the
You're
state of
interested in
Maine,
it?
is he not?
he's in the
Yes.
state of Maine.
Right.
Currently, the museum is in Portland, but he's opening up an ancillary
Right.
part of the museum up in Bangor, which is cool.
Right.
The bookstore and what have you.
But I believe
So-
Lauren, when I was a kid, Lauren was a neighbor of mine in Illinois. And
Yeah,
then
he
he
was-
That's
moved.
not surprising. He used to live in Illinois.
Right. Yeah. And then he moved out. So maybe I offended him. I don't know.
You probably did. But
It
while
takes
we're
a
talking
while.
about offensive, we got to go to our news break here. I don't know why I used the term offensive with that, because it's just the news. But folks, we'll be right back after this. Smoke one if
Yeah.
you got one.
Get to the news.
I'm
We'll be back in
offended by the
5
truth.
minutes. And oh, shut up, Baker.
This is the Sasquatch something or other. You recognize the music by now. You know where we're going with this whole thing, right?
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. So, apparently, there's a Michigan man who's trading gifts with a Bigfoot. Now, what he's getting in return from a Bigfoot, I don't know. Might be a big pile of, well, you know what. So, I hope you're all having a wonderful Monday night, or whenever you decided to click the play button. I hope it's the best day yet. With that said, a Michigan man says he's exchanging gifts with a mysterious creature which he thinks could be the elusive Sasquatch. Casey Dosert didn't want to reveal where in Michigan he lives, but he says he lives in the upper lower peninsula. Confused? Let me explain it to you in simple fashion. Just put a big fuzzy mitten on your left hand and look at the back of your left hand. From your knuckles to the tip of your fingers would be considered the lower peninsula, and he lives closer to where the fingernails are inside that mitten. Okay? The leaf, the dead leaf that's attached to the top of the mitten that you got snagged while you were trying to make a snowball, well, that would be considered the upper peninsula, which happens to border northern Wisconsin. All right, enough of geographical Vance. Just take a look at a map. You'll know what I'm talking about. But he lives closer to the fingernail inside the mitten. Now, for nearly 2 years, Dosert has been, and I'm doing air quotes, which you can't see, these alleged encounters and sharing them on his TikTok channel, racking up thousands and sometimes millions of views. Now, there has been a slew of Bigfoot reportings out of Michigan, And we showed a video here on the Sasquatch Experience of a rust-colored looking bipedal, upright looking thing walking across the Cass River in Michigan. And of course, many people reported it's carrying a baby. That I couldn't discern, and nor could any of the intelligence at the Sasquatch Experience determine that either. But that's all hearsay. There is a slew of reports coming out of Michigan. So when we come back, I'll read you some quotes from Dosert himself, along with some of the feedback that appeared on his TikTok channel in response.
You're listening to the Sasquatch Experience.
Your soap is ugh, and your body wash is a synthetic detergent. But you're not a dish. You're a man. Switch to Dr. Squatch Natural Soap for Men. For men who build things. Open pickle jars on the first try. Slay dragons. And let their daughters braid their hair. Men who like to feel good and smell. Titillating. Dr. Squatch takes you places you never thought you'd go. Naked.
Enter promo code DSQEXP. Again, promo code DSQEXP.
Ta-da!
So this Michigan man, Mr. Dosert, who claims he's been gifting the elusive Sasquatch in Michigan, has not, and I did a little bit of research, but has not been very clear as to what he has been gifting or been receiving. So I don't know if he put out an apple or put out something shiny or slain body parts or his mother-in-law's cooking. I don't know. But if you follow Mr. Dosert on TikTok and you have an answer to that, all of us here at the Sasquatch Experience would be interested to know that. Mr. Dosert is quoted as saying, "This flurry of Bigfoot activity piqued my interest, so I decided to see what these sightings or encounters were all about. Naturally, I reached out to Bigfoot experts. Mr. Dosert, there is no such thing." He continues to say, "I was enlightened by the beliefs of Bigfoot believers." Here's some of the feedback to Mr. Dosert's postings from Johnny High Street. States, fake, 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 fake. From Sad Truth, if you believe it, it must be true. From Elliot Ness, he posts, "They already caught the Bigfoot. He's currently the Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor." And from Midnight, or the person that post says Midnight, "It is real. Whenever my dad sees I haven't mowed the lawn or put the garbage to the curb, I get the Bigfoot right in the ass." Thanks again for listening to this edition of the Sasquatch Experience, Stranger Than Fiction News. And now back to three guys that know a hell of a lot more than I do.
How dare you!
Never ceases to amaze me with the level of creativity, shall we say, that you put into the news segment each and every week.
Sure.
Folks, he's Vance Nesbitt. Send your email to info@Sasquatch Experience.
Please do.
In the subject header, Vance Nesbitt in there.
Vance,
So you get the
shut up,
feedback
Nesbitt. Yeah, please.
right to him. No, we look forward to the news each and every week. Get a lot of feedback about it. It's always well received. But as let's transition from Lauren Coleman to our next researcher, Shelley Covington, Montana. Henry, why don't you go ahead and tell us why Shelley's foremost on your mind?
Yeah, Henry.
Well, she definitely. I do follow Shelley. You know, she takes a scientific approach to the subject.
Yes.
She's definitely. She's not one to take people at face value. She'll look into someone's stories before she'll believe it. Just arbitrarily say, "Oh yeah, well, I think you may have had an experience." It's got to be proven to her.
Right.
She's tough as nails too, man. Let me tell you,
Yes.
she's no joke.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
she does very primitive camping. She's, very, not that, for her safety, she does a lot of solo and, uh, alone type excursions out in places I'd never go. But she knows her stuff. And, she makes some great videos when she's out there. I think she was cooking slugs on one of them. So she teaches and educates while she's out there looking for, the mystery primate that,
Right.
covers the forests of North America. But she's out there,
Right.
man. And I think she's a very interesting person. Got to get her on the show and we can nail her down from her trips. She was in
Mhm.
Alaska not long ago. I mean, she's all over the place, but she does some really solid field work and a
Right.
very fun person.
Right. I've had a number of conversations with Shelley, and it's not that she's completely enveloped in the whole Bigfoot thing, even though this is her primary level of research, but she looks at everything. I mean, she would send me information and photographs of fossils and teeth that she found, and I would share back with her things that I found as far as fossils and teeth, and we would do comparison. So she's full scope, and I think that's really kind of what's interesting about a researcher is if they're full scope and looking at everything outside of even the Bigfoot phenomena itself, makes a researcher a little bit more educated. And that's what kind of drew me into Shelley Montana's entire scope of what it is that she's doing. And I know I use the term more than once, but, this is what she does. And, kudos to her for stepping out there in a solo format and doing her thing. And because I think that's probably the best way you're going to get some results is if you're out there doing it yourself. That's how you're going to get the results. Yeah.
I don't disagree with you on that. I think it's true. I just think it takes a certain amount of guts and intestinal fortitude to do that.
Yeah. And a little bit of moose nuts in order to do that because, good for her, good for her.
Absolutely.
And that's,
go ahead.
And that's one of the things, like we always talk about going up to the land and stuff. A lot of times if you're not out in the woods, I'm not saying that you have to be hunting Bigfoot all the time, but like Henry reads a lot of books, so he learns. So if he went out in the woods, he could go, oh, that's probably created by like a deer trail or this is this or whatever.
Mhm.
Every time I go out there, like I know little things. Like I noticed there was a deer trail going right through the weeds because you could just see the way it zigzagged and everything. And you're like, okay. And then I looked at my game cam and go, yep, there was a deer over there. But I mean, these are the people that are actually out there going, okay, maybe we're not finding Sasquatch, but it's kind of weird. These weird things are happening. Okay, well, and let's look at the other parts of it. Hey, there seems to be 3 water sources, 1 food source, and there's a lot of discarded animal bones. Well, we either have a large predator or we have what I'm looking for. But at least then she does the science to figure out, to narrow it down instead of just jumping into the it must be Bigfoot bed, and and then it can't be anything else, because the problem is when you lock yourself into that, when you find out it's not Bigfoot, then you just kind of like it shatters everything. Because you're like, oh crap, there's been a bear there for 3 years. I've wasted my life. Where if you were like, it could have been a bear, and I learned all these things,
And you notice about one thing that I've noticed about Shelley is she never shuts you down for whatever it is that you're sharing with her.
Nice.
She doesn't just cube you out and push you away and say, yeah, you're nuts, go away. She listens to it and at least absorbs the feasible aspect of what you're sharing with her, and she tries to insert that into her research. And I think that's really important. I've always found that to be a very important aspect of what it is that she does. So again, I use the word kudos. Kudos to Shelley for what it is that she's been doing lately.
Amy Boo, our good friend Amy Boo. Project Zoo Book. I think a lot of her accomplishments speak for themselves, really. But she's another one that's out there, go getting them. Boots to the ground, building a network of citizen scientists and researchers, bringing everybody to the table to get opinions on on evidence collected, get some analytical looks at things. Again, job well done on Amy. We talk about people who are really trying to, change the way we do research, and I think she's on the forefront of that. The whole show's about researchers that are on our mind. Amy, like again, solid individual.
Mm-hmm. And she's been on our show too, so
sure, which doesn't hurt.
There's
right?
There's
Always
another
good.
positive, right? Yes, absolutely.
No, she's just a good person too, and I think she really tries hard to.
She is.
Make Sasquatch research accessible to everyone, whether you're an armchair and in the field, an enthusiast or a hobbyist, or have a passing interest. She tries to, and she goes to some of these places, these sportsmen's conventions, places where traditional people would be laughed out of.
Right.
She gets there and she gets information from people. That's what's important. And, I just can't, give her enough kudos as to what she's doing, and, esteemed field researcher.
Right. On top of which, her own personal experiences of what she's seen out there. And, that's what really drew her in tightly into this whole research thing, because I don't see a person getting so drawn into the research if they didn't have such a profound experience. And, she did. Amy had a very profound experience, and it drew her in very tight to want to get to an answer, but she's not discluding anybody's theory or opinion. And, that's pretty damn important. To me, it's pretty important that you don't exclude other people's opinions. She'll accept it, and she'll, distribute whatever into whatever little bin it needs to go into, but she doesn't shun anybody for sharing their personal experience or thoughts about what she experienced. None whatsoever.
Generally nice person.
Matt Arner, my good friend Matt Arner. Guys, working with Matt over the last, oh my God, 6 years, become a good friend and confidant in terms of Sasquatch research. Really spends a lot of time out in the bush. Big elk photographer. Really loves being outdoors. A very professional person. Very formal background, and his occupational life. A police officer, a police detective. Just all around good dude. Good personality. I'm always learning something from Matt. Matt reads the material, listens to the podcast, but he also has boots to the ground research. Spends a lot of time in the Alleghenies, the northern tier of PA, and I just can't say good enough things about Matt. And he knows his animals and his wildlife. Like, I'm always learning something from Matt. He's good to be in the field with. There's very few people I trust more in the field than Matt Arner, and that's the God's honest truth.
Right.
And we've had him on the show too, which doesn't hurt.
But you know what? It takes somebody like, Matt's experience. And if you're out in the field with him and you hear a bizarre howl from a coyote, he calls it out immediately and says, yeah, you know what? That's a coyote.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then let's put that over in the coyote bin here, and let's listen to something else that, we may not have heard of. So he's very scientific in his approach, and he definitely knows noises of the wilderness. I give him
He's
that.
also very open-minded.
Right. But he knows the noises of the wilderness, and he can call it out immediately. Nope, that's not what that is. That's actually a fox, or that's a bobcat, or a mountain lion that's howling. And, it saves you so much time when he can identify something immediately and say, yep, nope, that's not what we're looking for. That's a bobcat. So that's helpful. It's always helpful to have somebody with you, especially with Arner's experience with at least being able to hear and understand what the noises are of the wilderness.
And not just that, like his, mentality, very stable, solid force. And, like I said, very few people I trust more in the woods than Matt Arner.
Right.
Good dude. Really good dude. Nice guy. If John Candy was a Bigfoot researcher, it would be Matt Arner.
Wow, that's
Very-
an interesting aspect. I did
Rag
not
it.
expect.
Personality wise, man, he's a lot of fun,
Right.
and he's
Right.
but again, push comes to shove, nobody I'd want to be in the woods with more than Matt
No.
Arner.
How about it?
Vance, this was you, buddy.
Dr.
Jeff
Meldrum.
Yeah, you know, I brought up the whole Dr. Meldrum thing, and I think the most interesting aspect is, you know, Jeff was involved in the anthropological field long before he was even introduced to a casting of a Bigfoot, a footprint. And he looked at it and was kind of curious about it. And from there, the whole thing took off. And he's like, wow, the reality behind all of this. Dr. Jeff Meldrum didn't step into this field as a Bigfoot researcher. He was a university professor in anthropological studies. And this was presented to him. And he's like, wow, there's a lot of facts here that we really need to look into. And he immediately went down that rabbit hole to get more answers as to what the creation is and what the probability is of all this evidence being presented to him. And he's looked at it in a very skeptical lens. He's always looked at everything in a very skeptical lens, but so much of it he's looked at to say, he puts his arms up and he's like, you know what? I think there's probably a very large bipedal creature in North America and throughout the world, but primarily North America. And he's continued that research from that point of view forward. And I respect Dr. Meldrum very much just for taking that approach from the first time that he was presented this evidence.
Well,
he is also
looking at it today, the face of academia for Sasquatch. Like I don't know if there's anybody there that has that more professional image associated with Sasquatch research since Dr. Grover Krantz passed.
Right.
Dr. Meldrum's really picked up that mantle, but he's also done some fantastic work with footprint castings with Cliff Barrickman. The work those two have done has been amazing when it's come to, looking at the individual casts and just the information you can get and sharing that with everybody. It has been remarkable. And I think you got to get, kudos to, the research is being done, and he gets in the field. He's not just a laboratory professor. He does get in the field. And, that means something. While you have a lot of these academics that say Sasquatch isn't real because of this, Dr. Meldrum's in his lab looking at evidence, and then he's also out in the field saying, well, I'm going to punt this back in your face because I'm out here doing this. And
he was also in a cabin when rocks were being thrown at the cabin. He was there during that event. So, that says a lot too.
Absolutely. Baker, you were going to say something. Go ahead, bud.
He's always also, whenever I go to any of his speeches, his roundtables are always so interesting because he will take any question and he will ask. He's polite about it. When he's at these places, people will come up to him. And the best thing that happened to me the last time we went to, I believe it was Ohio, was a couple just walked up to him and he goes, they go, we don't want to bother you. We know that you're blah, blah, blah. And he goes, if I was out, if I didn't want to be bothered, I'd be sitting in my room. I came out here to talk to people, and he just has always been, when you're at his table, he's always pleasant. He's not all about, making sure that you absolutely believe him. If you have a question, even during the round table, when some of them were like, he's like, that's a very interesting point. And then he would actually, he learns from, what I like about him is he seems to learn from the people as much as he teaches.
Right.
And that tells you a real scholar, because that kind of person doesn't shut down, like I said, doesn't shut down your ideas because he may think they're wrong. He expands on them or tries to help you a little bit, but then he also looks at your ideas and go, well, you're not completely wrong. You could be
Much to
right,
your
and I
point.
could be wrong.
Very much
Yeah.
to your point is
Yeah.
that he absorbs whatever information he gets from those, whether he's doing a conference or just giving a speech somewhere. He takes everybody's comments and opinions kind of heart to heart. I don't know how else to put it, but he puts that into the whole philosophy in which he puts together in his personal research too. And I think that's pretty stellar. I really think that's a pretty stellar move that he takes
So we now-
everybody's input into it.
So we're now going to refer to Dr. Meldrum as the Great Absorber. Okay.
There you go. All right, the big sponge.
The big sponge. Lyle Blackburn, Henry, this was you, bud.
Yeah. Yeah, Lyle is Lyle's one of the good ones. He's an author. I don't know if he would consider himself a researcher. He's more of an author / enthusiast. But he actually does the field work too. He goes out there.
Yeah.
He
And he
gets
wears a
out
nice
there.
hat.
Yeah.
I just
He
saw
gets out
Lyle
there.
at the I just saw him at the Mothman conference, and we got to just talk. It's something very rare anymore. You get a chance to, everybody lives so far apart, but you've known each other for so long to kind of stand there and chill a little bit. We had a few moments to talk that Saturday morning before it got balls to the walls busy there, and going to get Lyle back on the program so we can talk more with him about Texas Bigfoot, the book. But, again, somebody who's become a mainstay and a face of the field. Right? Working with small town monsters, narrating some of those, documentaries that, really gain a lot of attention and get some traction to the subject. Lyle's bringing a kind of a more, I don't want to say mainstream, but kind of an alternative mainstream vibe to cryptozoology. So we should be all for it and celebrating. But, to the point, Henry, he does get out there and he does research. So it's, being called a researcher would be fair.
Right.
Yeah. I would say, oh yeah, there's the man right there.
This one was kind of unanimous by all you guys. Was Cliff?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Cliff. Yeah, Cliff's
It's
been
right,
there for
about
quite a while.
Lyle Blackburn.
Right.
He's a great author, and his hot sauce is awesome. Yes, Lyle's hot sauce is really good. I didn't get a chance to do that before I flipped the slide.
No,
Sorry,
I
but
haven't.
Cliff,
I tried it yet. No, that's okay.
North American Bigfoot Center and Museum, right? Another gentleman who spent a long time into this and a good friend. So I try not to be biased. And, one can make the argument that a lot of these people on here are kind of the mainstays, but it's researchers that are on our mind. I think we could go on and on and on with a ton of researchers that we could name.
Right.
But these are the ones that, when we all sat and talked briefly before we went and did this, these were the names that, rapid fire off the top of our minds, right off that we're thinking about.
Right.
And folks, I want to know who's on your mind. So you can email that to us at info@sasquatchexperience.com as we wrap the show up with a little talk of Cliff Barrick.
Good guy. We was it Ohio that we hung out with him afterwards, and him and that other gentleman were having a heated discussion, which I wound up being yelled at because I was trying to help, but it wasn't useful.
That's okay, Bake. We all yell at you at some point.
In my defense, my bar bill was like $260. I stopped buying booze, but they kept providing booze. Okay.
Yeah.
But they were having a heated conversation. But the one thing was he never downplayed the gentleman or anything. He just asked the simple question of, okay, who, you saw this. Did you see them make it? Did you see this? And they said no. Okay, so how do you know somebody else didn't do it? And that was one of the things that really stuck in my head was with him. He was down to earth about it. He wasn't playing in the air. He wasn't, I'm on TV or I'm doing this. And so you guys, whatever. He's like, hey, I saw you guys over at the thing. Come on over. And we hung out. And the thing is like, he, like I said, he's kind of in the same boat with me, with Coleman and Meldrum is that they're real people, that you know, and when I talk to other people that are in kind of in the Bigfoot field, and they're like, "Hey, what'd you do on Sunday?" I'm like, "Well, I had drinks with, you know, Cliff Bear."
Right.
And they're like, "No way, he's on blah 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 blah, and he does all this stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, and he also can drink more than I can, and he's a nice guy, you know, a lot more than him and Dr. whatever his name was."
No, I get it.
It was a good time. It wasn't.
You know, Bob brings up a point about MK I know that MK Davis is just so far buried himself into the PG film that I think that may have probably caused some scars on him as far as the whole the group and the community, however you want to look at it, may have brought some scars upon him. But he did bring up, you know, previous to all the research that he did into the PG film, and I'm talking about the Patterson-Gimlin film, you know, he did bring about a lot of interesting points as far as a researcher goes. So, you know, I do give Bob a thumbs up for bringing up MK Davis into this. And, you know, there's so many other names that have contributed, you know, some information or video in analyzation to say, hey, you know, maybe take a look at it this way and you might see something a little bit different. You know, these are just the researchers' names that came to the forefront, that floated to the top with the four of us, and we're focusing on that. So we're not trying to diss anybody else that has put a lot of effort into this whole research thing by any means. That's not what we're about. We're just
but
bringing
Vance,
the names that float to the top the most for us.
But these folks have contributed, and
absolutely,
you know,
right.
We got to recognize that contribution. And I'm not saying nobody else has, but again, the show is the researchers on our minds for various reasons, thoughts, or whatever. They happen to be there. But we also have been in the field with most of these people, except for Shelley and Dr. Meldrum. But, you know, we've got a lot of things, you know, that a lot of reasons, I shouldn't say things, a lot of reasons why, you know, these folks came to our mind. A lot of it is contribution based. Are they making gains in either museum or attraction or share of knowledge or, you know, just their research? What are they bringing to the table? And we brought these names up, so maybe some folks out there that may not be too familiar with some of them, get out there and learn about these great folks and the works they're doing. So it turns you on to other folks, and we start creating that virtuous teaching cycle of promoting good, solid researchers as opposed to the same old shit all the time. And not there's anything wrong with it, but like, there's so much diversification of thought out there. Let's start bringing people into it. Sometimes that may take us into places that are a little uncomfortable. Jamie and Jenny King are two of my favorite people and research in a completely different way. And had I not known them as individuals, they probably would have weirded me out a little bit with some of the things that they believe and investigate. But they're my friends, and I trust them. And they've built that relationship with me that I'm comfortable saying, you know what, they may be on to something. So get out there, folks. Find yourselves some friends. Get your asses in the woods, in the field, and start getting weird and experiment with things, because that's getting messy and getting dirty in the field is what's going to make a difference. Get weird.
You know, Sean, Amy has just checked in with us and said, hi, guys, watching from the ER. Boy, wishing you the very best, Amy, because you were a part of the show. So we hope that everything is okay. And please keep all of us at the Sasquatch Experience informed that you're doing okay from the ER.
Folks, get those thoughts, prayers, well wishes, and good vibes out to Amy Boo right now. She needs some good thoughts. So keep her in your thoughts.
We love you, Amy.
Prayers, guys.
Yeah,
we do.
Absolutely. Thoughts with you, Amy.
Nothing means more than the application of energy. You know, that whether you believe it's prayer or whatever, it's just that consciousness, stream of consciousness to one person makes all the difference in the world. And they've done studies on that, folks. You can go Google that shit and find it. So what I say to you is a universal truth. But you know what is another universal truth? That it's come to that end of the night. I'm so glad we had this time together. But it's time
you need to sing that at the end of each show.
No, I'm not. That was
That's a
one and
new
done.
rule.
He had
If we
trouble.
start,
It's a small world.
right, listen, who the fuck knows that song anymore? I'm sorry. He's sitting
We
there
love you
singing
too,
some-
Amy.
Yes, we do, Amy. We love you too, hon. He's singing some stupid song, and I'm like, I had a pounding headache, okay? Not just a little headache, a headache the size of Africa, right behind my eyeball. And he starts singing It's a Small World. And like he's banging that chair back and forth right now. Like, I just want to take a 2x4 and beat him
don't
with it.
blame
But
ya.
it's
I
10
don't
o'clock. So let's
blame
wrap this
We
up.
were
I know.
I'm Sean.
Pluto was a planet.
Ed too, and Pluto is a planet. I don't care what anybody says anymore. It was a
Yeah.
planet.
A planet.
Yeah.
It's a planet. All right, folks. I'm Sean Forker. He's Vance Nesbitt. That's Henry May. That's James Baker. Find us on Facebook. All of us follow our names except for Vance, who's not allowed back on there for a while. But you
No,
can find a way to get
ever.
to him through us.
You
You've
can
been
find
listening-
him. Find him through Instagram. Yeah.
I find him through Instagram. You've been listening to the Sasquatch Experience. Henry, take us out with those dulcet tones.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
Keep on squatching, folks. We'll see you next show.
You've been listening to the Sasquatch Experience. Please rate and review wherever this podcast is consumed. To share your experience, visit us on Facebook or email us, squatchexperience@gmail.com. Keep on squatching.